Hey,
No problem.
Dan's here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh,
Right here. Do you want to sit right
I
here?
don't see anyone.
Well, you gotta see over here. Come over here. Stay here on that chair.
Who's that?
These are the people in the meeting.
Oh. The city hall?
Mhm.
That's Carmel?
Yes.
But anyway,
That's
I'll talk to you later.
okay, thanks, John.
Bye.
Hi, Catherine.
hello, Catherine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Just getting organized here. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Catherine.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
I see Mr. Mandarago there. Hello, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you all look like movie stars now.
Yeah, right, right.
I had a bout with COVID, but I'm over it. So
Oh, that's
That
good,
was-
Carol.
interesting.
Yeah, that's not to laugh at, is it?
It wasn't actually too bad, I have to say.
Good.
It was, yeah.
Good.
I had 2 shots and a booster, and I got it twice after that.
Really?
Yeah, so
This- The latest boosters, I had 2 boosters after my shots and I got it. It doesn't seem to, maybe it reduces the severity of the symptoms. I don't know.
yeah.
But at least it's, the symptoms seem to be fairly mild in everybody I've talked to. So
Yes.
that's good.
Yeah.
See my name right there?
Oh,
See, we're waiting for Jordan. Marnie, is Jordan going to join us today?
So I believe Jordan is traveling and he is out of the country. And so he may not be able to connect.
Okay. And Eric is gone, so that's just 3 of us. And we're waiting for Kathy. All right.
it's not holding on.
I tried to print out the agenda and my my printer decided to run out of ink just as I was printing it. So
Huh?
I don't have it in front of me, but I've written it out. So
Everybody else hold it. I do
No.
too.
Not me. I'm the only one not boosted.
will Brandon be joining us today, Marnie?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
What are we here for?
But we don't have a quorum if Kathy's not with us, correct?
That is correct.
Was she at the site meeting?
Yes, she was. Sometimes she has trouble connecting.
So Marnie, you're feeling better, I trust. Good, good. Okay. Good to see
I
you.
am.
Good
Nice
see
to
you.
see
Were
you.
you sick, Marnie?
Yeah, I caught a cold, and it was kind of rough.
Hmm.
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Ah, there she comes. There she went. There she is. All right. Can we call this meeting to order, 20th of June, 2022? Roll call, please.
Board Member Croman. Board Member Galtieri.
Here.
Board Member Hall.
Here.
Board Member Pomeroy.
Here.
Chair Dyer.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to talk on any subject that is not part of our agenda? No one?
Well, we're here to talk about a Dolores project, the Dolores project.
The one that is on the agenda with John Mandrake. Yes, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
Any announcements from the staff or from the board?
No announcements from staff.
Maybe if Brandon were here, he would remind us about the workshops tomorrow and the next day, 4:30 to 7 at Carpenter Hall, that are going over the design guidelines, 1.5 they call them, to update them from earlier times. And he sent out many announcements to that effect. So
Sent me a text today asking me not to attend.
he did?
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it here.
So I was going to address that under the director's report, but you are correct. We are having 2 public workshops, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. We are asking that our elected and appointed officials not attend these public workshops. They really were structured for the general public, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable giving their input without decision makers being present. But there will be plenty of opportunities for both our elected and appointed officials to weigh in on the project as it moves forward.
Oh. Okay. Then we move on to the consent agenda, and we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Let's start with the adoption of minutes for April 18th. Would anyone like to move to adopt those?
Is that the one where Kathy was absent? Because one of those, we won't have a quorum to vote on if she was absent. Isn't that right?
We voted on the 18th. I don't know about the last one. I wasn't here at the last one, the May one.
I wonder if do you need 3 votes to have passed something today?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that Kathy can vote on one and you can't vote on the other. So how can we can't really do those.
We can defer them until the next meeting.
All right, let's defer the minutes until we have a quorum. Orders of business is next. The first item on the agenda is Historic Context Statement Public Workshop.
All right, I'll
Kat.
be giving a brief intro, and then our consultants will also give a progress report. So I'll just share my screen quickly. Marnie, would you mind giving me screen sharing access? If it's easier, you're welcome to flip through the slides.
Okay, maybe try again.
There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Okay, so this project, I'm sure, has been on your radar for a little while now. City Council authorized a contract with past consultants on April 4th to update our existing historic context statement. And just as a quick review, this document was first adopted in 1997 and then last updated in 2008. And that brought the context statement up to cover the period 1940 to 1965. And this current effort will extend the document another 20 years. So from 1966 to 1986. The city is using state funding for this. I'm sorry, there we go. So we've received a $30,000 grant from the California Office of Historic Preservation, and it is a relatively narrow scope. So this is just covering the 20-year period. We're working with past consultants, as I mentioned, Seth Bergstein and Kent Seavey, who have been working in the city for many years and know it very well. We also have 2 subcommittee members for this project. They were selected on April 14th. That's Catherine Gualtieri and Eric Dyer. So the subcommittee has met twice with our consultant, and through those meetings, and also the kickoff workshop that was held on May 16th, we've identified that the document needs more work beyond the scope of the OHP grant funding. So the sentiment was also echoed by some community members who spoke last month.
You want to put it on mute?
With that in mind, the city is committed to exploring a phase 2 of this effort. So the phase 2 would involve really reformatting the whole document. It currently has very broad themes that could be applied to any city, like titled economic development, for example. So we're interested in getting really specific with the themes, very distinct themes that are ordered chronologically. So someone would be able to just open the document and go right to a time period that a building was built in. We're also interested in adding photographs throughout the full document and adding character defining features and integrity thresholds. But again, this is a bigger effort than what we can do in the time period we have to fulfill our grant funding. So as our consultants speak today, keep in mind their scope for this effort is limited to 1966 to 1986. So here's our timeline. We're hoping to get a working draft out to the board and the public for review at next month's meeting, and then reviewing a final draft August 15th. As I mentioned, we've kind of thought of this phase 2 scope, and for that reason, we're going to delay bringing the document to the Planning Commission and to the City Council and to the Coastal Commission until we have a comprehensive update to bring them instead of going piecemeal once and then again. Just as a reminder, these are our existing themes that the consultants will be adding on to. And the chapter on architectural development is really where you're going to see a lot of change. As I mentioned, we're working with a 20-year period. However, there is a caveat because some of these architectural styles that were popular in the mid-century started before 1966. So the consultants are going to have to go pre-1966 to address the beginnings of some of these architectural styles, which I will let Seth and Kent speak to in greater detail. So Seth and Kent are here today. They'll be giving a quick summary of the topical outline they've put together. They'll be speaking to the architectural styles that they've identified in Carmel as popular during the 66 to 86 period. They'll report on the field survey that they've done, and then give you a look at their proposed themes, which would be covered under a phase 2. So Seth and Kent, I don't know if you would like me to keep some of these slides up while you speak, or just bring them up at your request?
Great. Thanks so much, Catherine Wallace. Seth Bergstein here, Principal of Past Consultants, and my partner, Kent Seavey, of course. Yes, if you could please leave that style, our 10 styles up to start, and then probably the only other slide I'll go to are the proposed themes at the end.
Sure.
So progress between the previous report and us being before you here today. The field survey is ongoing. The field survey will probably continue for several more, or at the most anyway, another week after this one. The results of the field survey, what we have done, and I want to emphasize Catherine Wallace's caveat that we're writing developments off the existing theme 66 to 86, but there was a request and there was a desire in the request for proposals to understand late 30s developments in architecture, beginning with minimal traditional. And then as we got into it, we realized, especially when you think about the Bay Region styles, they cross-pollinate, they come down here from the Bay Area, so they're starting earlier. So that's why you see some of the beginning styles here on this Zoom slide, on this slide, that predate the mid-century period, exactly how it was just presented. So we've come up with 10 styles. They're roughly organized here before you, chronologically. And I would say the idea is to communicate architectural style as clearly and concisely as you can with these photographs. So what you'll have for each style is you'll have a photograph of one or two buildings. You'll have a list of character defining features. We'll have a list of buildings that represent that style that are on the HRI. And in certain instances, we may discuss concentrations, although obviously we only have a 1 square mile city. But we've already just figured out most of the minimal traditional buildings are kind of toward the northeast. It's probably where, based on when lots got developed in that time period, the remaining styles are pretty much, with the exception of 7th and 4th, where there's a concentration of mid-century modern buildings. We want to try to see if we can figure out concentrations for potential districts. I'm not sure if it exists in Carmel. But the other significant thing I would say that I discovered personally is that all of these styles, especially the later mid-century styles, or I should say just the mid-century styles we've all heard of, the 1st and 2nd Bay Region, what we're calling writing organic, they're expressed in Carmel in unique ways. They don't follow exactly what you might see in a Bay Region style, say in San Francisco or in Berkeley. So there's a very unusual quality to Carmel's architecture that is very one-off, frankly, in a lot of ways. Particularly when you get to mid-century. We have our other styles coming up to World War II. We all know about those. We have period revival here. Obviously, we have Spanish revival. We have the early craftsman period. It gets difficult to define based on this one-off nature. So what we've tried to do is gather as many texts as we can in our own knowledge to look at how the styles have been expressed in other texts. And that helped us determine what some of these style names were. We also contacted OHP, Jay Correa, who I've worked with over the years, to see if OHP had an established set of mid-century styles, and they essentially don't really. And they pointed us to some of the texts that we were already using. For instance, of course, the newer McAllister, Carol Rifkind's text, and a couple other texts on American houses. Smith as well. So we've tried to come up with the terms using these accepted terminology, but also, I should say the styles, using accepted terminology, but trying to get the notion of this regional aspect of mid-century architecture that is still very Carmel, using specific Carmel materials, adapted to lots that are generally deeper than wider. For instance, in the California ranch style, you don't see your typical California ranch you'd see in, say, the San Jose suburbs, right? Where builders came in with 1 or 2 architects and built 100 buildings in that style. What we have here is individual buildings, essentially, done in various mid-century styles scattered throughout the city for the most part. So the characterization is proving very interesting. So what we'll try to do on these styles is include more than one building photographically, try to give you a sense of what the styles are. Then, of course, we would really like everybody's review on this once we get it going further. But those are our 10 styles that we've decided to go with. And then this slide literally just explains what you'll see for each style. The only thing I would say is, since we're only really covering mid-century in this phase, and the 66 to 86 in this phase, when I mean architecturally speaking, we'll probably write one section on eligibility requirements and integrity thresholds, because they'll probably be applicable for all of the buildings. When we get further into it, it may be a little different. Each thematic chapter will have an eligibility requirement table and integrity thresholds commentary. So you wouldn't do it for each style, you would do it for each time period. So in this case, since we essentially have 1.5 time periods, we'll throw that terminology in. The idea is to make this give you an idea of what the context statement is lacking and how it can be improved based on the way typical historic context statements are written today. In our kickoff meeting with the public and with everybody, even though I keep using the same one, I still think as a guide, the Pacific World Context Statement, written in, I believe, 2011 by Page and Turnbull, is a good guide based on, I think, how OHP and how California has developed historic context statements. And for those who didn't attend our first meeting, the challenge for consultants coming in before us, and even as historians that work in the community a lot, is that there really is not a thematic structure in the existing document. So additional projects we've just been tacking on to this overly broad, non-chronological structure. And it's been a challenge, I think, for all the consultants. So that's partly why it has this sort of tacked on quality to it, the way it exists now. But the historical narratives on and how they are developed within the existing document are strong examples of historic writing, and they're good. And there's no reason to rewrite all that stuff. We just sort of need to restructure how we fit into the themes you see before you right now. Thanks so much, Catherine. You're totally anticipating what I want to do. But yeah, so what you'll see here, and these were largely devised by my partner here, Kent, because he's written the Carmel book and has been working down here for close to 50 years. But typically historic context statements break up once we get into the development of architecture that's somewhat consistent, say into the Victorian period, generally 20-year time periods. And the time periods reflect thematically what was going on in Carmel or any location at that time. So the six themes you see here are taking that pretty much that established SHPO's format. And then what you need to do in each chapter now is to look at how the architecture of your city, in this case, Carmel-by-the-Sea, developed and how it's reflected in the themes that you see there. So then when somebody, say, is looking at a house that's built in 1925, and they see it has some clay tile roof on it, it's got some stucco cladding, where does it fit into Carmel's history? Well, they'll go right to this report. They'll see it fits in within village and a forest between that time period, and now they will look at the character-defining features of the Spanish revival style in this case, and see if their building has enough of that where maybe they want to list it, or maybe in this case it doesn't need as much of a phase 1 from us, or as much of a phase 2, or depending on the individual nature of the building. But that is what's lacking from the document. This is how we propose how it would ultimately look thematically. And what we're trying to do is write up as a model continuity and change. But again, our job is to just sort of add on these time periods to the structure that exists now. So you won't see a chapter developed the way at the end of this phase, developed the way you would see, say, in the Pacific Grove context statement. We'll be restructuring it later. But the post-war development, we'll probably just use the last two themes you see there to key in all of our new works. Everybody can see what changed and what was done. And Catherine Wallace's conclusion that the primary work we're doing here is surveying mid-century to 1986 and trying to come up with a structure for what all these buildings are, what classifications they fit in, what's character defining about them, so they can be identified in the future particularly by staff and the public. And you want to embellish?
No, I think, it's fairly, we're lucky that everybody started something about the same time. Example being Village in a Forest. You've got Custer coming in and creating the village corner down there at Ocean and
St. Carlos?
No.
Monteverde.
Monteverde, I'm sorry.
As an economic tool to deal with his theater, to bring people in, and also, but using European regional styles, romantic revivals, and at the same time, Hugh Comstock building a cottage out of his mind and probably out of a book by one of the English children's writers for Atsitasi dolls that his wife was making. That absolutely caught on, and for the next 4 years, he couldn't make enough of it before he too moved into the area of general contracting. Village in a Forest, Seacoast of Bohemia is not that hard either, because you're talking about the arts and crafts movement, not only in Carmel-by-the-Sea, but also in San Francisco. 1906, the earthquake and fire brings a lot of people down here, and also a lot of stylish changes of not only San Francisco, but the educators from Stanford and Cal tend to make their summer houses down here. And so there's a very strong continuity of design within the framework, I would say, of the village, the simple house developed with Mabeck and others. And then, of course, post-war development is a vast change because of material availability, because of new materials, and also because of new blood. And so you see a lot of attempt at economic maintenance for the artists and the creative people here. By the same token of the availability of materials, we put in our friend. Who's our friend?
Be more specific on that.
Post Adobe.
Oh, you mean Comstock's Post?
Yeah,
yes.
Comstock's Post Adobe comes from Comstock writing at some point in the 30s, late 30s, about his sense that there was going to be a war, and it was going to be a pretty damn big war. And what do you do in the construction industry when you have no availability of materials? And so he looked at the logical material, which was Adobe brick, and its only tiny problem was it melted, or theoretically it melted. And so he had to develop a material or find a material, Adobe, that can solidify that. But what do we do in terms of structural framing? Go to timber framing. And so he uses it nogging in cultural, and that style of architecture and that book that he did in 1948-49 are still being used to build Adobe structures. So that new technologies, economic issues, the development of the flat-roofed house, primarily one of them, in that post-war development, until everybody got back on their feet, was going along. But some of those people coming back were particularly interested in a new architecture in America. And Gordon Drake, who came here right after the war, early on, to develop a school for graduate students to work as not only a school, but also as a professional office to develop those styles and activities by renting themselves out to individuals and to institutions and communities was going to be fine. In fact, it was moving in the right direction until he found a tree while he was skiing and died at 35. But a lot of other folks came in here too, World War II types. Cranston, Elston, both World War II engineers. John Koningshofer, United States Navy. But all of them had some idea of what was going on and were very interested in the new. And so that's how you get into this post-war, not the post-war deal, but into the 50s and 60s. And from that on, it's people really, if you look at it carefully, a group of younger architects coming into the companies that were formed by some of these guys and then going off on their own. Bertie and Shaw, good example, one of the better examples of that activity. And so they come out. Bertie came out of Bob Jones' office. Stanton set several of these groups of elements of two. And so what you see is this kind of internal dynamic where these folks are looking or having been trained educationally and then coming into these firms, begin to see the opportunities of a regional environment. The two things here that drive the design and architecture, except money, unfortunately, which there's too much of now, were the environment itself and the opportunity of expression, of reasonably free expression. And they had good models to work from, both on the international market and in the national trades. We had been come upon by the Europeans in Southern California in the 20s and began to turn the international style into what some call soft modernism by the application of natural materials, et cetera. And so, we are the beneficiary of all of this thinking in a specific environment and a climate setting.
All right. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Catherine. Anything else about that from any of you out there in public land before we go to the board? All right. Catherine Gualtieri, you are on that committee. Do you have something to add?
Yes, I think Eric and I had a subcommittee meeting with the past consultants, and we were very satisfied. I wish Eric were here to put his 2 cents worth in, but we were satisfied with the way the grant is going. I think it's realistic that they not try to shove everything into one document. It would be impossible anyway for September. And I think what Catherine Wallace said earlier about postponing the final approvals by the planning, et cetera, is the right way to go. So I support these 10 styles. I think we'll have a document at some point, hopefully soon, that will be a full reading of what Carmel architecture consists of. And I made a point last month, I think, that a modern architecture began in the 20s, which I think Kent Seavey told me. But the fact that we had we don't have the false fronts that most little towns had in the turn of the century. And so I think we can look at each decade that Carmel has experienced as new architecture, new contracting, new designers, new styles. And they teach us a lot about our history that I think all of us will benefit from. So I support what Seth and Kent are doing wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Any other comments? So we look forward to the next draft rendition of the guidelines, and we'll stay tuned, I guess. We don't have to agree to anything or vote on anything, I don't believe, in that regard. Is that correct, Marnie or Catherine?
That's correct. The only thing I would add is that you can email Marnie or any questions. We also have a page up on the city's website, and you could sign up for emails about this topic on the city's constant contact list. And we'll see you at the next meeting for a working draft review.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, I just had one quick question. We had a few members of the public that gave some interesting input last time in May. I was just wondering if they're out there now, or if did they have any more opinions or feelings about it? Just wanted to make sure that.
Thanks, Seth. That's a great point.
Cover those bases.
Okay.
Anyone in the public wish to discuss this topic? No. Okay, apparently not. So we'll close this discussion and move on to DR 21-327, Scandia Lopez LP. This is the historic site at Dolores, 4 southeast of Ocean Avenue. Thank you very much. And Marnie, are you the one that's going to be presenting that information?
I am. So if you give me just 1 second, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so before you this afternoon is a request for a determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior Standards. So the project site is located on Dolores Street between Ocean and 7th Avenue. It is listed on the local historic inventory, and it's known as the Percy Parks Building. It was constructed in 1926 by Percy Parks and was originally a meat market and grocery store. In 1967, the awnings on the front of the building were added. And in 2002, the property was evaluated for historical significance and subsequently added to the local historic inventory. So the existing building is 1 story. It is a commercial building. It's currently vacant, but was the former site of the Jean de Luz retail space, which is relocated in town. There are 2 retail tenant spaces in the building, and it's approximately 2,700 square feet. The proposed project consists of 2-story additions. The commercial use on the first floor will be maintained, as will the 2 retail tenant spaces. The spaces would be slightly smaller at 2,444 square feet. And the new project would add 3 apartments. They would total about 2,400 square feet, and you can see the breakdown in the unit sizes below. So this slide shows the floor plans at the top of the slide, and then a cross-section view at the bottom. So starting in the top left, this is the ground floor plan. You can see commercial space A and B. And then the Dolores Street is on the left. And then to the right is where the new 2-story building would be constructed for 2 apartment units. The green outlines show patios and decks for the new proposed apartments. The building cross-section at the bottom of the slide shows the perspective standing on the west side of Dolores Street, looking up at the project. The apartment located directly on top of the commercial building has been set back a significant distance in order to ensure that it remains out of the view shed from the public way. So there are 10 standards for a determination of consistency, and they are summarized here on the left. The standards speak to the use of a property, retaining and preserving historic character, not introducing conjectural features, and so forth. So the city staff contracted with Meg Clovis to prepare a phase 2 report for the project. She evaluated the project against the 10 standards and found that the project was consistent with standards 1 through 3, 5, and 10. She also concluded that standards 4 and 6 through 8 were not applicable to this project, and that consistency with standard 9 could be achieved with minor modifications. So standard 9 speaks to new additions, not destroying historic materials, and then also differentiating the new from the old, but maintaining compatibility and also protecting the integrity of the property. So based on the phase 2 report, it is recommended that the exterior walls of the addition be painted in the same color range as the existing building, but not matched identically. This has been included as condition number 1. Also, the recommendation is that the roof materials be consistent with the Spanish colonial revival style, but using a different tile dimension, so a very subtle differentiation to what is on the existing building. And this has been included as condition number 2. The Secretary standards also provide guidance for other aspects of modifications to historic buildings. This particular project would require a fire suppression system with the addition of the 3 apartments. And so that system, it's encouraged that it's sensitively designed to preserve historic features and finishes. And this has been included as condition number 3. And then lastly, the front entry doors do appear to be original to the building. They currently swing inward in order to meet emergency egress requirements. The door swing would need to change to swing outward. Staff is recommending that the doors be retained as well as the door frames, and this has been included as condition number 4. So with the application of these 4 conditions, staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution issuing the determination of consistency. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mary.
I have a question, Carol.
Go ahead.
Marnie, if I read your figures correctly, the commercial space is 2444 square feet, and the 3 apartments are 2461 square feet. So do you conclude that the addition is larger than the commercial space?
That is correct.
And then in the city's workings, do you count decks or courtyards or any of that type of space when you estimate new additions?
No, that is not included in the square footage.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about permeability in the courtyard area. Are there any restrictions on permeability of the courtyard materials?
So the courtyard is most likely going to be the location of the on-site drainage system. Right now, all the stormwater would be directed to the courtyard, and it would percolate into the soil back there. So from that perspective, there's permeability, but it's really for stormwater retention and dissipation.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Is there anyone in the public then that would like to speak to this project? John?
Well, I'm happy with the report and the consultant's report and Marnie's report. And I really have nothing to add, but because they did a good job. I think they covered everything, but I'm happy to answer questions if someone has a question for me.
I have a couple.
Okay.
What kind of roof is behind the ridge line? In other words, is the existing roof from the eave to the ridge, is that all going to be maintained?
Well, no, we're going to replace it with a new roof. Currently, it's just a flat tar and gravel.
Okay. And and then the other question is looking at the drawing of the simulation of the ridge line with a small wall above it. How tall is that amount of space above the ridge line? How high is it?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you see the roof, and then there's the ridge.
Which roof? The existing slanted?
Yes, the one you're showing in the picture. See if I have it here.
I'm looking at. I don't know if you have the section.
Do you have a drawing of the existing roof anywhere?
I have the section. If you look at the section, which is now on the screen, the building section.
Okay. What?
I don't know if you can zoom in a little closer. There you go.
Okay. So what can you see from where the existing roof comes up from the front, right there? What can you see of the apartment, and how much distance is there between them?
You won't be able to see anything from the street. Okay. And I did design that on purpose because I wanted to design this so you couldn't see what was going on in the back.
Did you consider doing a computer-generated 3D model, which would show a person standing on the proposed patio, or something?
I did. In fact,
do you have a copy of it?
Yes, I do, and it shows the entire project. And you can spin it around and look down from above and totally understand what's going on. Now, I did, that requires that you have that program on your computer. However, I sent Marnie some snapshots of that, and I don't know if she can put them on the screen. I sent JPEG files. Let's see.
I apologize if the 3D renderings did not make it into the packet. If you give me just one moment, I can certainly pull those up for you.
Oh, great. Because I think that shows it very clearly what's going on.
What would be while we're waiting for that, what would be at the upper sides of the patio above? Oh, there it is. It's a wall. Okay, that answers that.
So there are 4 renderings. So just let me know if you'd like me to advance through them.
Yes, please.
That's showing the back between the 2 buildings. And it shows the elevator coming up to that level. That's kind of a cutaway to show what's happening with the different levels, the stairs going up to the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor and I guess you'd call that the 3rd level. That would be the rear of the 1-bedroom apartments in the back as you're standing in the courtyard.
Did you, John, did you have a 3D example of how this back of the building, the new building, would look from San Carlos Street?
No,
okay.
I didn't do that.
Okay.
Well, you know, the back wall of our project is adjoins the back wall of the San Carlos. So they're back to back. They almost touch. So when you were out there on the courtyard and you looked in the back, you saw a very tall wall, and that is the wall of the building on San Carlos.
So what you're saying is we wouldn't be able to see anything from San Carlos Street in terms of this building. Is that correct? The additions?
You know, I went over there when I was passing out the notices. You will be able to see a little bit of the wall from one of the shops there. If you were to walk on San Carlos, you would see the netting. We probably should have done that, but it's not a significant amount. Yeah, that shows that rear wall, and it touches the rear wall of the building on San Carlos, but it is a little taller than the wall on the that you'll be able to see from San Carlos. We had the netting up. We forgot to point it out how much taller it is than the building next door, but it's not much taller.
Like 2 feet, or do you have an idea?
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 feet. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's all the questions I have.
Anyone else? That would leave Kathy. Okay, no questions. So let's close the public comment.
Do you have an opinion, Carol?
Well, I was actually impressed, given that you're adding 3 units to the building. I think he's done a nice job of trying to minimize the impact. I certainly agree with the standard 9 issues, those 4 conditions that need to be met. But, and I think he is certainly willing to do that from what I understand. But I think he did a nice job of, given there are 3 units and the size of the one that set way back, we stood on Dolores from different angles and really could hardly see anything back there. So that was rather impressive. They are going to lower the ceiling inside the historic building, but in order to reduce the size of the upper apartment, which I think is an advantage. So that doesn't bother me at all. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable with it at this point. All right. Does anyone want to make a movement?
So before we make a motion, I just want to be sure that there aren't any other members of the public that would like to speak on this item.
There was a couple.
Yes.
Okay.
They seem to have disappeared. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Looks great, says Nancy Toomey. Okay, anybody else? Seeing no one?
The couple you were referring to might have been the owner and the owner's daughter.
Okay. All right. Well, they appear to have left.
Okay.
We're still here, actually.
Oh, there they are.
Okay.
You know, whatever you guys recommend, I think, you know, if there are any changes that you need to have done, we'd be happy to make those changes. And we just think that it would be a real benefit to the city of Carmel to, you know, have some more housing. For what?
Say my dad, he's been living here forever.
Well, why don't you say it?
Well, maybe I should say a few words myself. I've been living in Carmel since 1950. I love Carmel. I really do. I don't want to change anything in order to make changes in Carmel. I like the city the way it is. I've tried my very best to keep this 3-unit in such a way that doesn't do anything to make city of Carmel look different. As I said before, I enjoy Carmel. I've been living in Carmel. I've been working in Carmel. I've had my restaurants in Carmel. I've been there from 1960 up to now. So I don't want to change anything in Carmel. I like the way Carmel is and always like to see it that way. And I appreciate your support.
Okay. Thank you. Could you identify yourselves just for the record?
My name is Jack Hakim Baba. I am from overseas, from country called Iran. I moved to this country in 1957 and arrived in New York and came to West and resided in Redding, California. Went to Chico State College, graduate in a business, and accidentally, when I was in San Jose, I made a wrong decision, wrong road, and I found myself in Carmel. And I enjoy Carmel since. I do remember Mrs. White, the Carmel foreign student advisor. She invited me to come and stay with her at Carmel. And since then, I've been part of Carmel. And as I said, I do enjoy it and I love Carmel. And I don't want to change the Carmel atmosphere, looks. And I enjoy to be part of Carmel as I have been since 1960.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I think what Mr. Hakim expressed was very much from the heart, and I think his architect has worked diligently with him to carry out the design that he feels will work well for this site. I am troubled by a couple of things. For one thing, I'm sorry that we have only 3 members here today for such an important addition to probably the most historic street in the village of Carmel in the historic downtown conservation district. This particular east side of Dolores, all built almost 100 years ago, is relatively untouched and intact from when it was first created by those designers who we're going to learn more about as the context statement continues. So I'm concerned about the fact that there are only 3 of us here, 2 of whom are pretty new. We don't have our architect. And I think that the design for the addition, while it's sympathetic, the apartments together, the courtyard, are larger than the building itself, which to me does not speak to the idea that this is subordinate to the historic building. I think they've tried to do a good job in, I didn't know about the 3D, and I don't think our architect chairman has seen those, but I think we should take a continuation and have a full board here to look at this for a final time. I don't think there's any particular rush. It's summertime and a lot of traffic anyway in the city. And the point that was made in the consultant's report that it may be possible to have a larger, taller building doesn't work for me in this historic conservation district. I think perhaps I'll have my mind changed when we have a full discussion with the other members, but to call 3 apartments subordinate to a 2,400 square foot commercial space, it just doesn't ring true. So at this point, I can't support it. I would recommend a continuation.
Kathy?
I was out there today and I thought he did a good job of putting it all back in that little courtyard in a very compact way. And we walked across the street and really didn't see anything. There was just like a small place where you could see anything. And if you happen to be walking by there, you probably wouldn't be looking up there anyway. I thought it was a good design. I would be inclined to approve it as is.
Thank you. Well, I guess it's a moot point because we do not have a quorum. Is that right, Marnie? If 2 of us approve it and 1 of us wants a continuation, what's our status then?
So we do have a quorum with 3 members present, and you just need a majority of the quorum to pass a motion.
Okay.
So you could pass the motion on a 2-to-1 vote.
Okay. I think just to address Catherine's concerns, I understand this seems like a very large project considering how small the initial traditional area is, but we're talking 1 on top and 2 in the back, which makes it then larger, even though each individual unit isn't all that large. And I know the city has been encouraging housing units to be built within the city limits or within the downtown area of Carmel, and have made concessions, as a matter of fact, for parking, as Marnie pointed out, because of that encouragement to build units. So I can make a motion to approve the plans for DR 21-327 with the 4 conditions considered in Standard 9, the paint, the roof materials, the door swings, and the fire suppression system to be, according to Marnie's report there, what needs to be done. And so let's have a vote. Does anybody have any changes to that motion before we vote?
So we do need to get a second.
I will second it.
Okay. All right. Roll call.
Board Member Galtieri,
No.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Pomeroy.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries. And we now move on. Thank you, everyone, for your testimonials.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
so
Thank you,
much.
the member. We appreciate your vote.
Thank you.
All right. Director's report. Marnie, I guess you're the director today.
I am. So again, as we had discussed at the beginning of the meeting, I did want to touch on the upcoming workshops for the Design Traditions project. So those workshops will be Tuesday and Wednesday of this week from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at Carpenter Hall. The public is encouraged to attend. And one thing that I wanted to include or add on to my comments from earlier, one of the reasons why we're asking the elected and appointed officials to not attend these public workshops is that they are not publicly noticed meetings. And we also want to avoid running into kind of any issues violating the Brown Act if a quorum of a particular board, commission, or council were to attend. So we do ask that the public come out and participate and provide us with their feedback. And we look forward to getting input from our board members and commissioners at a later date when we schedule public hearings. And then my other update, just wanted to update you all on some staffing additions that we've had in our department, starting with our building inspector, Dwayne Dauphiny. He's been on board for, I think, a little over a month now. So our building division is fully staffed. We also just welcomed this week, or last week, Aaron Campbell. He is our new code compliance coordinator. And so he'll be working closely with Bo Grundy. So we now have 2 code compliance coordinators, which will help us cover the commercial and residential areas more thoroughly. And then lastly, Leah Young, our board secretary. She has been hired full-time as our administrative coordinator. She was filling in on a temporary basis for us when Margie Perotti went back to community activities. And so we are just thrilled to have Leah here full-time. And community planning and building is fully staffed at this time. So just want to welcome them and let you guys know that there's some new faces around City Hall. And that's all I have for my report.
Thank you, Marnie. Just one question for the code compliance people, is that now coverage 7 days a week?
That is a great question. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I'll have to check in with Brandon on that and we can report back to you next month.
Okay, thank you. Okay, future agenda items. Our next meeting is July 18th, I believe. Any other future agenda items? Anyone would like to add? All right, I think we can adjourn the meeting.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.